Okay, guys, so let's get started without any further ado. So before we do a quick formal introduction on my name is Mohammed Shoaib. I'm a cybersecurity trainer certified from EC Council itself. EC Council is a leading organization based in United States for certifications and trainings in the same domain of cybersecurity. And the course that they provide actually is called Certified Ethical Hacking version 12 running right now. Every year the version gets updated and newer topics are added in the course and the older ones are again redacted also. So again, uh, this is a course that is specifically designed for people who are planning on shifting their domain to cybersecurity or getting started in cybersecurity. Okay, so again, if you want to go in depth in cybersecurity, this is the first step to take. Okay, now you can notice that there are terms ethical hacking in the presentation slide here. A lot of students have a misconception that hacking and ethical hacking are one and the same. So let me start the session by clarifying that and giving you the definitions of both of these terms. Okay. And I hope the screen is visible for everyone, guys. I hope there's no issues with the audio before we
Yeah,
move into the next slide. Okay, perfect. Right. So when you talk about hacking, guys, now basically when you talk about hacking, this is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems. Now, what I mean by that phrase, gaining access to information systems, is again, as a hacker, I could hack your phone, let's say, for example, and this is done without your consent, where I have complete control of your phone now. So all the data within that phone is in my reach now. I can steal that data, destroy that data from your phone, okay, or sell that data to other people without your consent. Okay. Now, when you talk about hacking, this could be involving any kind of a device. We took the instance of a phone. It could also be possible on a web server or a database or the entire cloud network. Okay, so hacking is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems without the permission and knowledge of the person or the organization owning those devices. And this is usually performed by hackers for their own benefit, or sometimes they can even do it just for fun. Okay. Now, from this definition, you can definitely understand that hacking is something which is very illegal. Okay. But then, why do we have a course called ethical hacking? Is the question. So when you talk about ethical, this is definitely something which is legal or allowed. So how is hacking being allowed in real time? To define ethical hacking, on the other hand, this is the procedure of trying to find vulnerabilities. So this term called vulnerability is something that will keep coming across multiple times in the upcoming days of the course. To define it, a vulnerability is a loophole. It's a flaw in the security of that information system. And hackers try to take advantage of those same loopholes and try to get access to your systems. So your job as an ethical hacker is to find these loopholes in the information systems with the consent and with the knowledge of the organization and try to report them back. So once you find a loophole, it's your responsibility to report them back and tell the organization what the vulnerability is and how do you remediate them, how to patch it up. And once it's patched up, thereby you're securing the organization from any further cyber threats or any other harm. So your job as an ethical hacker is again basically a race against time where you try to find the vulnerabilities first and try to remediate them before any other hacker can cause any further harm. Okay. Now, depending on these two definitions of hacking and ethical hacking, we can categorize the types of hackers as well. So there's three main or three broad categories, I would say. So the first category is called white hat hackers, then there's gray hat hackers, and then there's black hat hackers. If you talk about black hat hackers first, these are people who perform hacking for their own benefit or just for fun without asking for consent. Okay, they're hackers basically, which are also commonly known as cyber criminals. On the other end of the spectrum, we have white hat hackers. These are people who abide by the laws and policies of the organization. They work within the boundaries, okay, to secure the organization's infrastructure from the hackers. And these are also commonly called as ethical hackers or penetration testers. And in between, there's a third category, kind of a mysterious category, I would say, called gray hat hackers. Now, these people have both the qualities of a black hat as well as a white hat hacker. Like a black hat hacker, they don't ask for permission first, but once they do find a vulnerability, they report it back to the company. But again, definitely there's a catch here. They don't do it for free. They do it in return for a bounty. A bounty is like a financial reward that they expect in return for from the company so that they can report the vulnerabilities back. So they report vulnerabilities at a certain price. Okay. They expect a reward in return for reporting that vulnerability and securing the organization. So therefore, they're also commonly known as bug bounty hunters, hunting for bugs in return for a bounty. Okay. Any questions, any doubts up to this point, guys?
I'm good.
Sandeep, Shekhar, any questions?
No questions.
Right. Now, no matter what kind of a hacker you take, guys, whether it be a black hat hacker, a gray hat hacker, or a white hat hacker, all of these hackers perform hacking or ethical hacking in a certain procedure. And that procedure is called as cyber kill chain. So in an organization as well, even if you're if you're an ethical hacker, the main operation that you perform is the cyber kill chain itself. Okay. To define it, it is a procedure that hackers follow in order to perform a successful cyber attack. And the same knowledge of this procedure also allows cybersecurity professionals to understand these attacks, to detect these attacks, and prevent them from occurring at every level in the organization. So sometimes this cyber kill chain can also be referred to as hacking cycle. So again, don't get confused. So whenever you hear the term hacking cycle or cyber kill chain, it's one and the same thing. And in a lot of interviews, they question you, what is the hacking cycle that you follow? So what we follow in real time is the same procedure given by EC Council, which is a 5-step procedure. So the first step in cyber kill chain is commonly known as information gathering. So let me list out these steps first, guys, and we'll briefly talk about each of those as well. So the first step is called as information gathering. Second step is called as scanning. Third step is gaining access. Fourth step is maintaining access. And the last step is called as reporting or clearing traces. Now, if you carefully observe here, only in the last step have two different words, reporting or clearing traces. What I mean to indicate by that is no matter what category of a hacker you are, whether you be a white hat hacker, a gray hat hacker, or a black hat hacker, first four steps are exactly identical. There is no change in the procedure in the first four steps. You have to go with information gathering and then scanning and then gaining access and then maintaining access, no matter what kind of a hacker you are. What varies is only the end result. Okay. If you are a white hat hacker or a gray hat hacker, you report those vulnerabilities back to the organization. You tell them or elaborate to them what the loopholes are. On the other hand, if you are not a white hat hacker, and other than that, instead, if you're a black hat hacker, you try to remove the evidences of your attack or of your actions. And that, in simple terms, is called clearing traces. You don't want to get caught. So what you do is you try to delete the log files and you try to stay anonymous. Okay. That is called as clearing traces. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about each of these steps one by one now. So you have a better idea about the entire course. Okay. So the first step is called as information gathering. Now, this can also be referred to as reconnaissance or footprinting. It's one and the same term, guys. Multiple organizations use these different keywords. Okay. But the main objective of all these words is to gather as much information or data as possible about your target organization. And the main important point to note here is all of this data is obtained passively. Okay. So again, what I mean by passively is you do not contact the organization directly in any way. All of this information is obtained from third-party sources. And the more information you find, the more easier it gets for you in the upcoming stages to launch that attack on the target system. Okay. So again, this is basically you doing some research and trying to find information about your target. Okay. Now, the main question that arises here is what kind of information are we looking for? And that is listed out here. Now, in our demo here, I might not be able to explain what each of these information means, guys. But again, this is a list of all the data that is actually retrievable from the internet for any organization. So if you take any website, for example, Tesla, Netflix, etc., you can get the IP addresses of their servers, the who's records, the DNS records, domains and subdomains of the organization, operating system information, what servers are they using, Microsoft or Linux, okay. Employee details as well, contact numbers of the employees, email addresses which might have been leaked online by the employees, okay, and the usernames and passwords if we can find any from data breaches online. Okay. So again, as mentioned, believe it or not, all of this information is readily available on the internet. All you need to know is what those websites are from where you can retrieve this data. And in our upcoming sessions, we're going to practically learn how to retrieve this data from any website on the internet. Okay. Now, once all this information has been obtained, you utilize this information as the input in the upcoming phases. So the next phase is called as scanning. And again, sometimes some organizations can also refer to it as enumeration, okay, also known as enumeration. And the main objective here is to gather some extra information as well but by making active and aggressive connections. So if you notice here, this step also involves you getting information itself. But the main difference here is rather than you getting it passively from other third-party websites, you now contact the servers of the organization. So whatever IP addresses or email addresses or whatever you have received in the earlier phases, that is utilized now to connect to the servers directly of the organization and retrieve some extra data. And to understand what that data is, we can break down scanning in three parts. There's something called as network scanning, port scanning, and vulnerability scanning. So in network scanning, we try to figure out in the target organization, what all devices are existing. So how many servers do they have internally? What kind of servers do they have? Do they have any DNS servers, DHCP servers, web servers, FTP servers, etc.? So trying to figure out what all devices are available in their network, a local intranet network. Once you know what devices are available, on them you perform port scanning to figure out what services are running on different ports on the device. So your system has multiple ports, again, logical ports, on which multiple services or applications run. So in port scanning, we try to figure out what services or apps are running on that system. And once you know what services or applications are running, finally you perform vulnerability scan to figure out what services could be vulnerable to an attack and which can be exploited. So during this phase, we'll be using two very important tools. One is called Nmap. So if I go to my browser here, I can search for Nmap here, which stands for Network Mapper. A very popular tool, been there since 1997 actually, but still used even in the latest commercial applications as well. Okay, completely open source and available for free. So we'll be practically working on this Nmap tool, which is asked in a lot of job descriptions as well. And there's one more tool called Nessus, which is a vulnerability scanner. So we'll be working on this tool as well. Again, quite an expensive tool as well. So Nmap is completely free for network and port scanning, but Nessus is a paid application for vulnerability scanning. And if you check the price for it, it's around $7,000 for 1 year subscription. But again, don't worry, we don't have to make any such payment as such. We have this tool available as a trial version as well, more than sufficient to understand the working of it. So we'll practically learn how to perform various operations with both these applications in the scanning phase. How do you perform network scanning, port scanning, and vulnerability scanning as well. So this tool is capable of scanning each and every single endpoint in your organization and tell you which device contains what misconfigurations or what loopholes on it. And again, it provides a report as well automatically. That report is used for performing penetration testing or testing the security of each endpoint. Okay. Any questions, any doubts up to this point, guys?
All okay.
Oh, Sandeep, any questions?
No, sir.
Right. So now once you've got all this information, guys, from the information gathering phase and the scanning phase, that is utilized in the next phase now called gaining access. So the real phase where again all the hacking occurs. Okay. So attackers use the vulnerabilities found in the earlier phases of reconnaissance and scanning to gain access to the target system or the entire network. Okay. Now, if you've still not understood the main difference, guys, in the earlier two phases, let me explain this with a very simple example. Let's take the example of a bank robbery. Okay. So again, most of you might have watched Money Heist or so and so series. Basically, when there's a bank robbery to perform, the thief first researches about the bank. So he externally tries to get information about the bank. So where are the security cameras located outside the bank? On what days of the week is the bank open? How many security guards are placed outside the bank? Okay. When on or on what day of the week does the money van come in? Okay. What loopholes or how many entry points are there for that bank? Okay. So all of this information can be obtained externally without anyone noticing. So this is information gathering. But to perform the robbery, only information from external sources is not sufficient. You have to know the internal infrastructure of the bank as well. For that, you need to make an active or an aggressive connection. You need to get into the bank. You definitely will get captured in the CCTV camera or so. Okay. But you will have to risk it and get their internal infrastructure information as well. Okay. So understanding how many floors are there inside the bank? Are there any basement floors as well, which are not externally visible to you? Okay, and on which level of the bank is the vault located? How many other security guards are placed inside the bank? Are there any extra security measures inside the bank, such as metal detectors or so? Okay, so again, all of this information can only be obtained once you make an active connection. So the earlier phase was information gathering, getting information passively. And that next phase, getting into the bank, is scanning, getting internal data as well. And once you've got all the data externally and internally, then you perform the robbery, which is again in hacking terms, gaining access. Okay. So this is one of the most important modules in the entire course, guys. Covers a vast variety of topics here, if you notice. Let me list out each of those one by one now. So first topic we learn in gaining access is system hacking. How do you crack or bypass any Windows operating system password? So again, let's say you're logged out of your own computer. Let's say a hacker tries to hack your organization and locks you out of your own devices. How do you get access to the internal data? How do you crack the password, which is again changed by the hacker, and get access to your internal data? And if you're still unable to crack it, if it's too tough to crack, how do you bypass the password? Without entering the password, how do you still access the internal data and try to retrieve your lost information? Okay. Then comes malware attacks. Malwares are nothing but malicious softwares. There's tons and tons of categories of malwares in the world today. Viruses, worms, trojans, spyware, rootkit, whatnot. So we practically learn how do hackers create these malwares, how do you defend your system from these malwares as an ethical hacker, and how do you detect them if they are already installed without your knowledge. Then there's a bonus concept called malwares advanced. This is not a topic in the curriculum actually. I've added it as a bonus resource to you if you want to learn how to create malwares using Python programming. Again, guys, please note, for this course, there is no requirement of any programming language. This is just a bonus topic included for you if you're interested in programming and if you have a keen interest towards Python to develop malwares. If not, you can completely ignore this as well. Okay. Then comes network penetration testing, where we learn all the vulnerabilities and attacking those vulnerabilities in a local network. Attacks like sniffing attack, man in the middle attack, denial of service attacks, hacking Wi-Fi routers. All of these attacks are related to a local intranet network. So using these attacks, hackers can capture your data in a local network, shut down remote servers, again by sending huge amounts of traffic, or crack your Wi-Fi router passwords and access your network without your permission. All of these are local network attacks. Then comes social engineering, where we learn how do hackers create phishing attacks? How do they create exact replicas of login pages from various websites? Now, whether that be a bank login web page, whether it be your employee login web page for your organization, or as simple as a social media web page, how do hackers create exact replicas and how do they fool victims into getting their credentials? This is what we learn in social engineering. We also learn how do you distinguish between a genuine page and a phishing page as well. Okay, in social engineering. Then after that, we have hacking web servers. Now, every organization has websites hosted on web servers or on the cloud as well. So we practically learn how do you find vulnerabilities on the web server? How do you find misconfigurations on it? Not just on the back end, we also find vulnerabilities on the front end as well. Vulnerabilities like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, broken authentication, file upload vulnerability, etc. So during this module, we'll be using a very important tool called verbs. Again, a very popular tool in web application pen testing domain. We'll be practically learning how to run this application for various practicals in website testing. Okay. So again, using these vulnerabilities, hackers can inject malicious SQL queries or inject JavaScript code, perform unwanted actions on the website, okay, such as stealing cookies, defacing the website, etc. Or you can also try to upload malicious files to a server and get complete remote connection as well. You can control the remote server as well if you want to. Again, if these vulnerabilities exist on that website. So we'll practically learn how to search for these vulnerabilities and how do you remediate them as well. Then comes evading techniques. So if an organization has security measures such as firewalls, intrusion detection systems, or intrusion prevention systems, we learn how to check the security of it. How do you check if these devices are configured properly or not? And if they are misconfigured, how do you bypass them and access the internal network? Then comes vulnerability assessment, a very important module, also commonly known as VAPT, vulnerability assessment by penetration testing. So during this module, whatever report we get from the earlier vulnerability scanning tool here, from Nessus here, this report is now verified, where you attack each and every vulnerability and check if that vulnerability is truly existing or not. So you're trying to perform testing on each vulnerability by attacking or penetrating on it and assessing the vulnerability. That is called as vulnerability assessment by penetration testing. And finally, after that, we have the next topic, which is hacking mobile phones. Just 1 second, guys. I'm so sorry. My charging is a bit low. My laptop's charging is a bit low. Let me quickly connect my charge. I'm back. So again, final topic is hacking mobile phones, where we learn how do you test the security of an Android phone as well. How do you send malware to an Android phone and get remote connection to Android phones and steal data of others using these malicious applications. Also, how do you protect your mobile phone from these attacks that hackers can perform? So if you carefully observe here, we have tried to cover every single endpoint that could possibly exist in an organization. We talk about system security, we talk about network security, we talk about wireless security, we talk about web server security, web application security, firewall security, and also mobile phone security. So as an ethical hacker, it's your responsibility to see to it that you check for every vulnerability that could possibly exist in every organization. Okay. So again, in your organization on every single device. And again, there's a lot more topics as well. I haven't included them in the presentation here because again, it would take me too long to cover all of them in detail. But yeah, this is a brief intro on what topics will be covered here in gaining access module. After this is done, you have two small modules left out called maintaining access and reporting or clearing traces. So in maintaining access now we learn once a hacker gets a connection to your system, how does he retain that connection? So he shouldn't lose that connection even after system restarts. Okay. So we learn how do you maintain or retain that ownership of the target even after the system shuts down or restarts after a while. That is called as maintaining connectivity or access. And finally, you have reporting or clearing traces, where we learn as an ethical hacker, how do you generate a report for the organization, elaborating the loopholes and eradicating the loopholes as well. Or as a non-ethical hacker, how do you report, sorry, not report, how do you remove all the vulnerabilities, the footprints that are generated by deleting the log files and erasing the evidence of your actions so that you do not get caught. Okay. So again, these are all the modules that are covered, guys. A brief intro on all the 5 important modules of the hacking cycle. And we'll be practically working on each of these modules. And before we dive into all these modules, since not everyone might be from an IT background, we have a few prerequisites as well. Understanding what networking is, what are IPv4 addresses, what are the categories of IP addresses, public IPs, private IPs, what are these protocols, DNS protocol, DHCP protocol. We'll cover all that first. Then we learn about how to set up a practical hands-on lab setup in our local machines, where we work on an operating system called the Kali Linux operating system. So I'll practically show you how to install this OS called Kali Linux in your own local lab setup. And we'll also learn Linux commands to operate on this operating system. Okay. Once all these prerequisites are covered, then we dive into the hacking cycle part. So again, we'll be covering everything from the basic, from the scratch. You don't have to learn anything else before joining this course. All you need is just a computer where you can have this practical lab setup on. Okay. So minimum requirement for that is at least an i3 processor. i5 is again comparatively much better for performance, and minimum 6 GB RAM. Okay, 8 GB is recommended. Minimum is 6 GB, and storage of around 80 to 100 gigabytes, not more than that. That should be sufficient to get started with the course. Okay. And anything that I'm missing out on? Yeah, duration of the course is for 35 days, guys, where we have classes from Monday to Friday, each day for 1 hour each. Okay. And yeah, that should be it. If you have any questions also, you can let me know. Sandeep, Shekhar.
Thank you, Shoaib, for that training. Just wanted to know, so each and every day, whatever the course which the training which you are conducting, those contents will be shared to us on daily basis, or how is it?
Yeah, you'll be getting the recordings, you'll be getting the notes and the presentation PDF slides and all on your email directly on a regular
Oh,
basis itself.
oh,
All of these
okay.
will be shared to you on your Google Drive. So a folder will be shared to you on Google Drive where all the recordings and the notes will be updated on a daily basis itself.
Okay, super. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? Sandeep, any questions on your end?
No, sir. Carry on.
Shoaib, the last question is it Python is required to learn cybersecurity?
No, not at least in the initial phases, Shekhar. But
Okay.
sometimes in organizations, they might give you a task to automate certain things. Okay, so not
Mm,
in the beginning though. Once you go in higher levels, when you're planning on again checking for going through logs or so, in such
mm,
analysis part, they might give you a task to write a script also. So
okay.
again, not mandatory in all domains of cybersecurity, but if you're automating certain tasks, then you might need Python. And again,
Okay.
that basic knowledge can be obtained from anywhere, from YouTube as well. It shouldn't be a big deal.
Okay, okay, sure. Thank you.
But if you're planning on sticking towards penetration testing itself, in that region, you don't have a requirement for Python at all, in no way. So because you have these various tools for automation separately available, you don't need Python again on top of it.
Okay.
So yeah, okay. Depends on your domain in cybersecurity again. There's one more domain called malware development. If you're planning on writing your own malware, it can be written in any language. People usually prefer Python because it's one of the simplest ones. So if unless and until you're going in such domains, there's no requirement for programming.
Okay.
Again, for this course at least, there is no requirement at all, just to be clear.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Any other questions, guys? Right. Assuming no questions, guys. So again, that's it for today's session. Nothing further. We'll be connecting back on Monday again, guys. The link for that will be shared to you directly. So Monday, I might or might not take the same session. Depends on the students. If there are multiple more other students joining Monday's session, I might retake the same session today. But if it's still just one or two more students or so, we'll go with the next class, networking fundamentals directly, progressing into the next topic. Okay. So again, on depending on Monday's strength, guys, I'll decide what to take up that day. Okay. So yeah, let's connect back on Monday again.
Thank you, Shoaib. Thank you for your time.
Sure, guys. Have a good weekend. See you on Monday again. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.